What's going on, guys, and welcome to another Doctor Who review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 10th Doctor David Tennant story, The Idiot's Lantern. So it is the story after the last two-parter of Rise of the Cybermen Age of Steel. It is The Idiot's Lantern, and yeah, it's kind of the story in between two-parters, actually. It's in between, the Cyberman one and the Ood two-parter, which I've already reviewed, so you can already go out and check that review on my channel after this one. But yeah, The Idiot's Lantern, one that I've always kind of been a bit mixed about. It's an episode that I think most people are quite mixed about. I don't think anybody absolutely loves this story. There are some people that really hate this story and think it's like the worst story of all time. I don't quite see it like that, but yeah, it is definitely one that I have issues with, but also have some things that I like about it. So anyway, let's get started with the cast. David Tennant as the 10th Doctor. David Tennant, he's always great, but he's really good in this one too. What else do I need to say, really? He has some great moments, the high moment with him and Rose when they rock up at, is it Tommy, the kid's name? When they rock up at his house, and also just the whole moment with the Doctor talking to Tommy's dad, Mr. I've got it written down here somewhere, Mr. Connolly. That's a really, the acting from David Tennant there is so good. He switches from, funny and silly at the start to being serious, and then when Mr. Connolly starts to like fight back, the Doctor just gets up and absolutely just goes for it and goes ham on him, and it's great stuff. Billie Piper as Rose Tyler, also quite good in this one. Once again, it's a story that she doesn't have the most to do. I mean, she's actually pretty much inactive for a good portion of this story when, spoilers, her face gets taken by the wire. But when she is there and she is doing stuff, like she has her little moment with Mr. Connolly as well. The whole Union Jack thing I thought was hilarious, and the way she kind of does that little like smile and run away, I love that. It's just really funny. And yeah, for what she does, she's good. But yeah, she is kind of not present for a good majority of the story. Right, so let's get on to some parts about this story. Everyone's getting TVs for the coronation. So originally the Doctor and Rose thinking that they're going to, I think Las Vegas, was it? In like the 1960s or something. But it turns out they've not ended up there. They've ended up in London right as the coronation is about to happen. So I guess that's the TARDIS, putting them where they need to be, not necessarily where they want to be once again. But yeah, and everybody's buying TVs, color TVs have just come out, and everybody's going out buying a color TV for the coronation, and that is what sets up this whole story. The Doctor and Rose telling off Mr. Connolly. This is what I mentioned before, that whole scene of the Doctor having a go at him, Rose having a little bit of a go at him, you're hanging it upside down and this and that and blah blah blah. And, it's the Union Jack only when it's at half mast or something. That whole thing is very funny. I do quite like that. So yeah, that whole scene, great stuff. The TVs are taking people's faces. So this is the main villain. What the main villain is doing here. It is called The Wire, and it is basically a kind of, is it an alien or is it just kind of some, I don't know, electric force thing that has gotten itself into the TVs and needs to feed on people to kind of give itself more energy. And its plan is that, it's going to put itself into all of these TVs that Magpie Electricals are selling. And once everybody sat down watching the coronation, it's going to feed on all those people, take all their faces, and basically take all their energy and become really powerful. It's an interesting concept. It's a little bit like, okay, what other than just like the Wire wants just like the power, but after that point, I don't know what her plan is. Like after getting all that power, where she's going to go, how that's going to work, I don't 100% know. But yeah, it's interesting how the TV just takes people's faces completely off, and yeah, The Wire is very annoying. This is probably the main criticism by most people on this episode, and that is The Wire itself. So it's voiced by a woman, and you see the woman on the screen, and her voice is very annoying when she starts going hungry and that whole hungry thing. yeah, it's cringy and it's annoying. I completely agree. I wouldn't say I used to quite like this story, but I found some good stuff in the story and I still do. But I can't get over the fact that the main villain of the story, which doesn't feel like the most threatening villain in the world, to be honest, is really just annoying. And yeah, just the whole hungry thing and the constant whining of her voice. Oh, it's very annoying. Rose gets her face taken by the wire. So this is what happens to Rose. She is in Magpie Electrical. She's talking to him, and he ends up being like, "Well, you know too much. I can't let you leave now." And the wire goes and takes Rose's face, and she becomes one of the people walking around with no face. And it is a very, I mean, it definitely amps up the kind of tension of this story for sure. Seeing that happen to Rose, I mean, you kind of figure that we're still quite away from the end of the season so far, and she's gonna be saved, but it is still quite like, oh, okay, that's a big thing to happen here. So when the doctor finds out about it and he's like, I'm gonna save her, we got to do all we can to save her. Yeah, it's definitely a good moment, to be honest. The doctor and the detective inspector's conversation that changes from the doctor being interrogated to the detective being interrogated. Now this is a moment, and this is the thing with this story. Although there's the plot itself is a bit wafer thin, it's not the most crazy plot in the world. The wire's annoying. There's some stuff that doesn't really work. There are a few little sprinkling moments in here that I think are amazing. This is one of them. The doctor and the detective inspector's conversation is so good. The detective inspector has the doctor. The doctor sat down. The detective inspector is standing up, interrogating him, and this conversation goes on. He starts asking him these questions. All of a sudden, the doctor starts talking to him a little bit more, giving him a bit of information and, being a bit nicer to him. The detective inspector then sits down. They're both sat down having a chat. Then the doctor stands up, and all of a sudden it just switches to the doctor is now kind of interrogating the detective. And I love the whole line because it starts with the detective investigator going to the doctor, tell me all you know. And it ends with the doctor going to the detective inspector, tell me all you know. I just think the transition of that scene is just, it's gold. I think it is such good television. Mr. Connolly snitched on everyone who had faceless people. So yeah, the whole thing with Mr. Connolly is that, and his family, with Tommy and all that, his kid, is that Tommy's grandma is her face has been taken by the TV. They had her up in the attic. She ends up getting found out about when the doctor's there. And we find out later on that it was Mr. Connolly who was snitching on people to get their faceless people taken away because really he's just a bit of an asshole. And he is an asshole character. He really is. Yeah, that's all there is to say to it, really. Finally, I'm just going to say that the resolution feels a bit rushed. So basically, The Wire puts herself into like a portable kind of screen thing that Magpie has to then go up to the top of a television aerial, which is going to get like, I think he's got to like plug something in. He's got to like plug her into the aerial, and that's going to beam her out all over the UK or wherever. I guess just the UK for the coronation to take all people's faces and to get all that energy. He does end up doing that. It starts happening. The doctor's climbing up there with him, and he ends up dying, falls off, gets kind of zapped into nothingness. The doctor ends up going up there, really fighting through, pulling out the cord, and she ends up basically she wipes herself from existence, kind of. She runs out of power and is basically dead. And that's kind of it. It kind of just ends, and everybody is magically now back to normal. The people that have lost their faces are all back to normal, apparently. It does feel a little bit like, okay, it just happens, the resolution just happens out of kind of nowhere. The only other thing I am going to mention, actually, which is something that I never really, I mean, it's not an issue. It's a thing that my partner mentioned when we were watching this one. She really didn't like the way this was shot. So it's very like, a lot of the shooting in this, the camera angles are like on an angle. And I think, I mean, I haven't watched a lot of like 60s, 70s sort of, those old, even maybe even older than that kind of detective shows. But I think just based off what I'm thinking, maybe the style of those old shows is kind of, the kind of diagonal sort of cameras and that sort of, film noir sort of look. I think that's what they're going for in this one. I do agree with my partner that it does get a little bit kind of wonky and a bit weird. I'm glad they did something different for this, but I will be honest, for me and my partner, it was a bit much having the screen constantly kind of tilting to one side. It's just something that I noted and my partner noted. But that's the review for The Idiot's Lantern from Series 2. What would I give this one out of 10? I'm going to give it a 5.5 out of 10. Like I said, I don't think this is an absolutely awful story. I don't think it's the worst in Series 2. There's 2 stories worse than this that are coming up shortly. But yeah, I don't think it's the worst. I think there are some great moments in here that, really elevate the story, like the whole thing with the doctor and the detective. It's just, oh, I love that scene so much. The doctor and Rose having a go at Mr. Connolly is pure gold. Tommy's a great little character to have in there. I think he does a great job. The actual villain and the plot are a bit kind of like, meh, take it or leave it. It's not the best in the world. And it does drag a little bit at times, but I don't think it's awful. It's not terrible. It has some very annoying moments, but all in all, a 5.5 out of 10. I think it just kind of sits around that sort of, it's fine, but it's nothing special. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.